Hello, friends. Good to be with you as always. Today I want to talk a little bit about an eventual return to in-person activities, in-person worship here at St. Philip the Deacon. Our decision to suspend those activities all the way back in March, which feels like a very long time ago now, is part of what prompted this podcast, which we'd been thinking about doing for probably more than a year. And now that we're a few months in, we're at that point of trying to figure out how to most faithfully and safely make a phased or staged return back to in-person services and activities. I will tell you, this is being published on a Saturday. We will be worshiping, as always, virtually tomorrow on Sunday. I may say a few words about this in my worship or in the worship service. My plan, though, is that during the week prior to this podcast airing, is that at St. Philip the Deacon we will have been finally able to articulate what some of those phases look like. So today, I want to just talk broadly, though, about some of the guiding principles and set expectations a little bit. So first of all, the guiding principles, and we've been articulating these actually from the very start here, and we've taken them very helpfully, I think, from a document written by Martin Luther during a time of plague in his own lifetime. And again, the overriding concern here in everything we've been doing has to do with a Christian love for our neighbor, right? That's driving all of our decisions. And the particular way that plays out during this time of pandemic is, first of all, caring for the weakest and most vulnerable. Second of all, paying attention to the best medical advice. And third, not taking any unnecessary risks. Again, I think I actually named all of those in the very first episode we taped all those many weeks ago. So that's the framework for our conversation around when we return. The document we're working on, again, it will have phases or stages. There will likely be points along the way that lead back up to full in-person worship. Those might be things like small group gatherings. They might be things like opening the sanctuary up to allow people to pray. During the week, we're thinking about possibly holding one or two small, intimate communion services during the week that would have to be sign-up only. So hopefully we'll start to offer some of those, again, smaller groups. When we do end up opening up for some kind of worship again, I also want to be really realistic about this and set expectations that it's not going to feel the same for a little while. We probably won't be able to offer, for example, 3 services on Sunday morning, just given the logistics of cleaning and the fact that we'll be breathing one another's air even after people have left the sanctuary. So it might only be a single worship service on Sunday. We might add a service on Saturday that we open up to in-person worship. Also, in terms of, again, setting expectations, obviously we won't be able to fill the sanctuary, that's obvious, but we also won't be able to do things like sing together as a congregation. And in our tradition, in the Lutheran tradition, that's a big part of what constitutes our worship services together. So we're going to try to figure out how to work around that when we do finally gather for in-person worship. But I just want people to understand it's not going to feel like Easter Sunday morning when we gather initially for in-person worship. The final thing I want to say is this, and again, I've talked about this before as well, but I think it's important to remind us, even though we have not been able to worship together or gather together, the work of the church has continued. And in some, in fact, new and innovative ways during this time of pandemic, which I hope we can take with us into the future, which will be kind of, I think, a hybrid future for the church. Sort of think Church 2.0, where yes, of course, we are celebrating the fact that we can come back together again in person, but we're also expanding and extending the work of the church digitally. So the work has continued. We've been learning together. We've been in community together. We've been worshiping together. We've been serving. We've been reaching out to our neighbors. And I want to remind us of that because I know that there are going to be differences of opinion about when and how we should get back to worship, and that's okay. I invite you, if you'd like to talk about any of those, your own feelings about that, please, please, please reach out to me. But the last thing I want, in the midst of a time when the church is working so hard to do God's work, and I think is doing it really well, is for us to start having infighting within ourselves about, well, we should have started sooner, we should have started later. That's exactly what the devil wants. In a time when the church is expanding its mission, the devil wants to throw a stone in all of it and say, here's a way to mess that up. Let's get everyone to fight with one another. And I would like to avoid that at all costs. So again, by now I hope there's a little more clarity, which if we have the document ready, we'll link to it in this video. If it's not quite ready, we'll keep you posted on when you can find it and how you can find it. But I hope you'll keep this whole situation in your prayers. And again, always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if you'd like to talk about it. Thanks as always for listening. Be well, stay in touch, and God bless.